To everybody who is joining in person and on our live stream. We will begin shortly. If you guys would like to silence your cell phones, I believe everyone has arrived safely given the weather conditions today, and we should begin here shortly. Thank you.
Ya, 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 la, la. Ya, la, ya, 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 la, la, ya. Ya, la, 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 la. Ya, la, ya, 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 ya. Ya, la, la, ya, la, 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 ya. Ya la ay 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 ya la la ya ya la la la. Please join me. Ya la la ya 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 la la ya la 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 la. Ya la la ya ya la la ya ya la 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 ya I, ya la la, ya la la la, ya. Ya, ya la la, ya la la la, ya. We read from Ecclesiastes. A season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for planting and a time for reaping, a time for keeping and a time for discarding, a time for loving, a time for hating, a time for embracing and a time for refraining, a time for slaying and a time for healing, a time for laughing and a time for weeping, a time for dancing, a time for wailing, a time for birthing, a time for dying, a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for seeking and a time for losing. Today is the time that we gather to remember the life of Diane Choate, a woman whose love and laughter touched many, many lives as daughter, sister, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, and as friend. When we endeavor to remember a life of almost 93 years, there will be no way to tell every important story at a single service, but our hope is that today, even those who were closest will learn something new about Diane as we begin to honor her life and legacy. I'm Rabbi Katie Mizrahi, the rabbi of B'nai Havara, a community that Diane was involved in founding. And later I'll speak a little bit of the experience I had of Diane as well in knowing her as her rabbi these last couple of years. So we'll begin with another song from lines of Psalm 121, which direct us to look to the mountains as a symbol of strength and hope in times of difficulty. And you can join me if you know this one. It's a favorite of those who love Colorado, as Diane did. Harim me'ayin yavo ezri esainai harim me'ayin yavo ezri Ezri me'im Adonai ose shamayim v'aretz Ezri me'im Adonai ose shamayim v'aretz. I lift my eyes up to the mountains. From where does my help come? I lift my eyes up to the mountains. From where does my help come? My help comes from the one maker of heaven and earth. My help comes from the one maker of heaven and earth. So we're going to begin now the process, which will not be complete today or even tomorrow or for quite some time, of remembering Diane Choate. I was blessed to meet Diane a few years ago as I was beginning to serve as the rabbi of B'nai Havara. She was already living at Hilltop Reserve by then. She sent me home with a gift, a pen with a squishy, tentacled, multicolored top that would jiggle and light up with every pen stroke. It made me laugh and smile and think of her every time I used it. Over the years, and especially in these past few days gathering memories of Diane, I found out that this quality of making people smile and laugh was a through line of Diane Choate's long life. Every person I've spoken to about Diane mentioned her sense of humor. Even into her final months, she loved to sit around with family, reading from a book of jokes and chuckling at the good ones. But let's go back to the beginning. Diane was born in Missouri to Herman and Bess Korbholz in 1932 and moved during her childhood to Stockton, California. She had two brothers, Philip and Michael. Diane spent some time as an undergraduate at UC Berkeley and met her first husband, Richard Greenspun, in California, although they soon moved to Colorado and spent the rest of their lives here. Together, they had 3 children, Kim, Wendy, and Jeff. Diane and Dick remained friendly even after they parted ways after 19 years of marriage. But Diane was not destined to remain alone. Love came into her life again as she met and married David Choate and grew close to his son and daughter, Jack and Emily. Jack has been particularly devoted to Diane's care in these past years as other children were at a further distance, and I've been very inspired to see that, Jack. Diane and Dave were married for 42 years until his passing. Over time, Diane was blessed with 4 grandchildren, Sydney, Annabeth, James, and Madeline, who brought her so much love, and other generations as well. Another through line for Diane was how she cared for others, whether it was when she went to take care of her mother in her final chapter, or how she developed an unusually close connection with a Japanese exchange student and stayed connected over time and distance. In addition to her loving family relationships, Diane had many deep friendships that lasted for decades. Diane relished life. She loved music, she loved animals, even quirky ones. She loved travel, she loved hiking and cross-country skiing. She loved dessert. So much so that in her later years, she developed a habit of eating dessert first, and then also in the middle, and then also a little bit at the end. As a woman of her generation, Diane's primary life's work was her family, but she also did take on jobs that reflected her values, working at an art gallery, and then on Tim Worth's campaign, and on the Rocky Flats Monitoring Committee appointed by Governor Lamb. Diane was open-minded and open-hearted. Her family describes her as ahead of her time, embracing feminism and progressive values early on. She might not have called herself a religious person, but her Jewish identity and community were very important to her. So much so that Diane was one of the founding members of what is now the B'nai Havurah Jewish community, where I serve as the rabbi. In the early days, it was more of a do-it-yourself alternative to establishment Judaism, and it has evolved since then. Diane and a group of friends in the early days became what's known as a Havurah, a group meeting in one another's homes to learn and celebrate holidays and so on. These friendship circles, Havurot, still form an important building block for our community to this day. And Diane's friends from that time have been devoted companions to the very end. People loved Diane. Her humor, her intelligence, her care. In Diane's final years, she was a favorite among the staff at Hilltop and would often make sure to end her meals by personally thanking the chef. And I heard she may have even had a tiny romance there. She was spotted holding hands with an ex-Bronco in the dining room, I'm told. Till the end, Diane was a person whose love, humor, and friendship gave joy and light to so many others. As daughter, sister, wife, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, friend, and citizen, she gave with love, she gave with laughter. She reminded those she touched to make time for joy and to prioritize delight. As we remember her legacy, may we all be blessed to carry forward her playful spirit and loving way in the world. Zichrona livracha, may her memory be for blessing. And now I'd like to call up Diane's daughter, Wendy, to speak.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here. So I've been mourning my mother in pieces, then again in a tidal wave of grief when her end finally came. In the past few years, as dementia set in, I became aware of the many parts of her that meant so much to me, those aspects that represent the essence of who she was and the ways my life and the lives of others were shaped by her. I know I won't be able to capture the fullness of who she was, but hope this represents a glimmer of what stands out to me. My mom was a people person, relationships being central to her being. From her early years in Denver in the 1950s with my dad, Dick Greenspun, she made connections with friends that have lasted to this day. Being part of the founding Havurah and the Reconstructionist movement in Denver was such a big part of our lives growing up, a community that became like extended family as we celebrated holidays together, finding meaning and connection. On an individual level, I could always talk to my mom about anything. Anything I was struggling with, she had her listening ear always ready and available. It's probably no surprise that I became a clinical psychologist, since she taught me the importance of helping others and valued my capacities in this arena. In fact, she was my champion and cheerleader in any endeavor I pursued. Well, maybe not any endeavor. There were a few things in high school that I won't mention now, but my mom had chutzpah, a willingness to step out of the familiar and try something new. In the early 70s, she got divorced from my dad, an experience that was outside of the norm at the time. She got involved in the newly burgeoning feminist movement, attending National Organization of Women meetings as piles of Ms. Magazine overflowed our coffee table. I even remember her wardrobe changing at this time as she became more bold. She began to wear bright colors that became her hallmark and style right up until the end. In this period, she met David Choate, the man who became her beloved husband, together sharing a humanistic perspective on the world and engaging in amazing adventures together. They traveled all over the world, being more daring than I could ever imagine being. I remember the time they met another couple when they were in Mexico who convinced them to sneak across the border into Guatemala at a time when that country was not a safe place to go. As soon as they crossed over, the other couple disappeared on them, and they had to figure out a way to get back. Somehow they did. My mom cared deeply about the larger world, with an ethical stance and interest in politics that permeated much of what she did. As the rabbi said, she worked at the Rocky Flats Monitoring Committee, helping to oversee the safe disposal of plutonium used for making triggers, then later for Governor Dick Lamb and for Representative Tim Wirth. In later years, she stayed up to date on politics by watching MSNBC probably more than 24 hours a day, talking back to commentators and loudly venting her frustration with the injustices of the world. She taught me the importance of political activism and engagement, something which paved the road for my work in climate psychology. My mom loved family. She treasured her two brothers, her parents, loved being a mother, stayed friendly with our dad even after the divorce. Her love of Dave was bountiful. I think of the two of them holding hands wherever they went. She embraced Dave's children, Jack and Emily, creating an extended family that didn't distinguish blood relations from acquired ones. In later years especially, her connection with Jack took on amazing closeness and meaning as he stepped into a caretaking role for which we are all deeply grateful. And of course, she adored all her grandchildren, Annabeth, Sydney, James, and Madeline, always interested in their latest experiences and spending as much time as possible with them. And boy, did she take a lot of pictures of all of them. My mom loved nature and the out of doors, something Dave helped awaken in her. Going to the mountains for hiking and cross-country skiing were regular occurrences, something that became a deep part of my soul. As an adult, I would bring my husband Charlie and our daughter Annabeth on annual summer trips to Avon with Mom and Dave, continuing the tradition of communing with the natural world. And of course, my mom loved to laugh, her sense of humor being one of her most notable characteristics, inviting in all who encountered her. Her friends have commented to me about how much they laughed together, helping them face life's foibles with joy. She had a quick wit, especially loving word play. She also loved language more generally. She has two granddaughters who became linguistics majors, so maybe that's no coincidence. She was an English major in college. Her children particularly know her ability to critique grammar. Mom, I still haven't mastered the difference between when to use you and me or you and I, but I will think of you every time I get it wrong. Even as dementia set in and her cognitive capacities faltered, she retained so many aspects of who she was. She remained a people person, welcoming old friends who would come visit and making new friends in assisted living. I have images of her holding hands at dinner with several different residents, either to warm their cold hands or to feel connected. The staff at Hilltop described how much they enjoyed her with statements like, "Your mother's a firecracker. We love her." She still had chutzpah, asserting her opinions about those she didn't like with colorful language that matched her colorful clothes and socks. I won't use the exact words, calling out unfairness when she saw it and asserting her needs. She still cared about others, engaging in a daily ritual of thanking the chef and servers after every meal in the dining room. She continued to love her family, relishing every visit and imagining us being present on TV shows when we weren't around. She continued to enjoy aspects of the natural world, watching nature and animal shows and digging in the tabletop garden at Hilltop. And she always retained her sense of humor, loving to share jokes from the joke books and cheating at bingo with an impish glee right up until the end. Through her journey into dementia, she continued to teach me how to be fully present in the moment, how to recognize that in losing aspects of who she was, a new phase of life can be treasured, and that losing someone in pieces might help to ease the path toward letting go. Mom, I love you and miss you in all your glorious pieces and in the whole of who you were.
Thank you. All right, I'd like to call up Annabeth.
Hi, hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here today. I'm Annabeth. I am one of Diane's granddaughters. And some of you might not know this, but I always called her Nina. And you might ask, why Nina? That's not her name. But when I was a baby, she decided she wanted me to call her Nana. But at that age, I was perhaps not the brightest bulb. And so I kept pronouncing Nana as Nina. But instead of waiting for me to pronounce the word right, she just said, you know what? I like Nina. Let's stick with that. And thus she became my Nina. I wanted to share this story because I think it highlights just how unapologetically her Diane was. She was a woman of immense moral strength, and she always stuck to her values, no matter the circumstance, whether it was racial equality, gender equality, animal welfare, you name it. She always believed in making the world a better place for everyone in it. She was one of the kindest, purest, and best souls that I know. And so I think that's part of the reason I had a really hard time getting myself to sit down and write this eulogy. I was worried I would not be able to do justice to the amazing person that she was and the incredible life that she lived. So yesterday, I went for a long walk and I wrote a letter of sorts to her. And so I would like to read some of that letter for you guys now. Hi, Nina. It's AB. I've really been putting off writing the eulogy because I think I'm scared. I'm scared that I'm not going to be able to do it justice. But I know that you would never feel that way. I know you would just support me and love me no matter what, because that's what you always did. You provided unconditional love not only to me, but really to everyone in your life, including my own mom, who then was able to pass on that unconditional love down to me. You weren't just a grandmother, but you were the matriarch of our family. And you shaped such strong, passionate, and caring women. And that's something I hope that I never take for granted. As I'm writing this, I'm walking along the Highline Canal right by your old apartment building, the Candlewick. And it's been nice being here because that's somewhere you lived my entire adult life and my adolescence as well, which were my really formative years. Those were the years that I was able to relate to you more like an adult and talk to you about things like politics, world travel, and new relationships. You were one of the first people I talked to about my now fiance, Michael, many, many years ago, back when he was just this boy that I wasn't so sure about. You really meant so much to me, so this is a really painful loss. I've been talking a lot recently about how it has felt hard for me to separate myself as a geriatric social worker, which I do for work, from myself as your granddaughter. I spend my days working with people and families affected by dementia. So there have been times since you were diagnosed that I felt like you and even myself were just another client of mine. But as hard as it's been, I also consider it an immense blessing that I work in this field because it did give me important skills to be able to connect with you, even when your mind wasn't entirely with us anymore. I know everybody is going to talk about your humor, so I don't want to take up too much time talking about that. But it does feel really special that even up until the end, I could make you laugh, sometimes even when no one else could. And this is a side note, the last time I saw her, her favorite joke was when I kept accusing her of cheating in bingo and then made skeptical eyebrows at her the rest of the time we played. Even in her final months, she knew that she was a troublemaker. And even at times when you didn't fully know who I was, you knew that your blood runs in my veins and you knew that you loved me. And that kind of unconditional love is not a given in this world. I think I have almost been spoiled with that and taken it as a given. But as I get older, I've learned that really that kind of unconditional love is not something that everyone gets. As I work with people who have dementia, I see that they can often become really nasty and hurtful to the ones they love. Even people who don't have dementia can be really terrible to their own flesh and blood. so I want to say thank you for providing that kind of love and kindness and care throughout your whole entire life, no matter what happened to you. You know, I think as horrible and as heartbreaking as dementia is, with you, it really showed how deep and unconditional your love really was. It kind of felt like you were saying, if I know nothing else in this world, I still know that I love you. And that is so incredibly significant to me. Anyways, I guess I'll wrap up now, but it just felt fitting to do this more as a letter to you because you deserve to be included in this conversation of how amazing you were. I hope that maybe somewhere, somehow you can hear me because you were really the best grandparent that I could ever have. And I'm really sad that you're gone. I hope that wherever you are and whatever the afterlife, if there's an afterlife, what it looks like for you, I hope that you're there with Poppy and you guys are cracking jokes, playing with some of your old pets like Zuki and Dandy, and getting to meet new people from all over the world. Whatever a good eternal rest looks like, you are truly one of the most deserving people that I know. I love you so much, Nina, and I miss you. Rest easy.
Thank you. And now I'd like to call Lisa to read some words from Sydney.
Unfortunately, Sydney is under the weather, so. Oh. Diane was my grandmother, who I called Gami. The same enduring term my dad and aunts called my Gami's own mother. Gami loved art and museums. She saw the world through the lens of beauty, colors, and creativity. She found passion and inspiration in everything, not just in paintings or sculptures, but otherworldly shapes of the mountains in Garden of the Gods, the aroma of the botanical gardens, and the vibrant colors of fall leaves at Candlewick, where we take evening strolls, not to mention her colorful wardrobe that always drew compliments. One of her first jobs after her divorce was at an art gallery. Her step forward into new empowering stage of her life branched from art. Some of her favorite museums included the Denver Museum of Art and the Botanical Gardens. Though she and I frequent the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, one of my favorite Denver museums. I remember there was a statue outside in a temporary art exhibit. It was a tree trunk with a woman's head and weird things growing from the branches. It was interesting to say the least, and the tiniest bit creepy. My Gami stood there in awe, studying with keen attention only a true admirer of beauty can. I actually took a picture of her observing the statue because I wanted to capture the brightness of her expression. Because of her, I learned not to just appreciate masterpieces, but small moments in life, like a creepy statue. Oh, I could see them. Gami always loved to travel, something I'm passionate about as well. She made friends everywhere she visited, even took a foreign exchange student to create a connection to people of diverse backgrounds, growing and fostering an environment of inclusivity and kindness. She found the best in people, the art of smiles and passionate conversations. She will be dearly missed. Let's honor her legacy by always searching for beauty and creating it wherever we go.
Thank you. So now we're going to turn to words from friends. And I'd like to call up Shirley Corin.
I'm not going to reiterate all the wonderful things that have been said about who Diane was and what her character was, but I'll tell you some personal little things that will maybe make her more relatable than the icon, which she was, that you've heard about. I remember Diane and Dave played bridge with me and Mike. And Diane and I tried to get better, and we would learn all these rules, and we would know all these bridge conventions. And Dave and Mike just played off the top of their heads and won 90% of the time. So, and I remember when Diane met Dave, we had some kind of a meeting at my house. I don't remember, probably political. And Diane said to me, "I've met this guy and he is great. And I think we hit it off." And she was madly for Dave, and they did hit it off, and they hit it off for a long, lovely, lovely time. One of those days that we played bridge at my house, Diane came by herself this time, and we played for 3 hours. And Diane looked in her purse and said, "I can't find my car keys." I said, "Well, maybe you left them in the car." So she went out to the car. Not only had she left the car keys in the car, but the car was running. And she had enough gas to get to a gas station before she went home. Diane was a beautiful friend. Loyal, true, fun, interesting, strong opinions about many, many things. And really, really smart. And one of the hardest things for me, and I'm sure for her family and others who loved her, was to see her lose this. But she never lost that essential Diane-ness. And when Celeste and I went to see her the morning of the day before she died, we were so, I'm sure I speak for both of us, but I know for myself, so grateful that even though she wasn't responsive and she didn't talk to us or even look at us, we were there the last day of her life. She will be missed and she will be remembered.
Thank you. So I'd like now to call up Celeste Greinberg to say some words as well.
I somehow feel that Diane is in this room with us. And everything that has been said this morning has been absolutely right on target. So many years, so many memories, a friendship of over 50 years. It was a relationship fueled by laughter, memory making, and serious and active engagement in the political world, and Reconstructionist activity, and just plain fun. Our Reconstructionist lives were initially as neophytes learning the ropes of something consequential and life-changing. We served on committees together, wrote services, and laughed a lot. Diane had a tendency to be able to do that with all of us. Somehow we knew we were ultimately making a difference in creating community. Laughter was always a major player, and Diane had a wondrous and robust quick wit with an exquisitely sharp mind and a strong political streak that ran through her left side, and I identified with it. The beauty of what remains are the myriad memories of a long and beautiful friendship that will always be a remembered treasure. Diane's friendship came with the neat packaging of her dear family. In the early days, there was Dick Greenspun and her 3 wondrous children. And then her marriage, quite a number of years later. That was beautiful, and the wondrous family that came along with it. Jack, Bet, and family. My gratitude to Diane for the gift of friendship. So long, my dear friend. It has been a lovely ride. And if you would just indulge me for a minute, I read poetry to Diane from time to time, which she always enjoyed. And this is just the last part of a poem that I had read to her, maybe not the last time I saw her, but around that time. It's the ending of Blackwater Woods by Mary Oliver. To live in this world, you must be able to do 3 things. To love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it. And when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. Adieu, my dear friend.
Thank you, everybody who's spoken. And just want to remind everyone too that our storytelling will be continuing tonight and tomorrow night as we sit Shiva and remember together more of these wonderful stories. It's so, so important. So we're going to turn back to the words of the Psalms, and I'll chant for us Psalm 23, and then we'll have Kim read a translation in just a moment. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar. Feel free to join me if you know it. Binot asher yarbitzeini, על מי מנוחות ינעלני. נפשי ישובב, נפשי ישובב, ינחני במעגלי צדק, ינחני במעגלי צדק, ינחני במעגלי צדק, למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא מוות, לא אירא, כי אתה עמדי, שבטך ומשענתך, שבטך ומשענתך, המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן, תערוך לפני שולחן, תערוך לפני שולחן, נגד צורריי. דשנת בשמן ראשי, דשנת בשמן ראשי, דשנת בשמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. You can sing with me. Yalalai, ai, 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 yalalai, ai, 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 yalalai, ai, 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 la, 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 yalalai, ai, 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 yalalai, ai, 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 yalai, lai, ai, ai. And now I'd like to call forward Kim.
So this is, as Rabbi, this is as Rabbi Katie said, this is Psalm 23, a Psalm of David. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He renews my life. He guides me on righteous paths for his name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I feel no harm, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table for me in full view of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely only goodness and steadfast love
shall pursue me all the days of life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever.
If you are able to rise, I invite you to do so as we turn to the words of El Male Rachamim. El Male Rachamim Shochen Bamromim Amtze Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina B'malot Kedoshim Uteorim Kezohar Harakia Mazhirim Et Nishmat Diane Bat Herman Babes Shelcha Leolama Began Eden Tehei Menuchata Ana Bal Harachamim Astireha Besetek Nafecha Leolamim Utzror Betzror Chaim Et Nishmata Adonai Hu Nachalata V'tanuach B'shalom Al Mishkava V'nomar Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Diane Choate, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bonds of life. May she rest in peace. And we say, Amen. You may be seated. I'd like to call forward Jeff to read a poem for us.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. As mentioned, she loves jokes, but she also did, as Celeste mentioned, really likes poems, and this one was very special to her, and I think you'll know it, so join in. In the rising of the sun, and as it's going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind, and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of the buds, and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now part of us as we remember them.
So in just a moment, we'll conclude our service with one more chance to sing together. And I just want to mention plans for the rest of the day and tomorrow. So immediately after our service, the family will go for a private internment to Fairmount Cemetery. And then tonight, we'll be having a chance to gather for Shiva at the home of Shirley Corin, 7114 South Poplar Way. I think that's addresses are on a handout. Yeah. So if you didn't get it already, you can get a piece of paper with the Shiva addresses at the back before you leave. We'll be gathering at 5 o'clock and then have a circle of sharing as well as a Shiva service at 6. That's tonight at Shirley's house. Tomorrow night, we'll also be gathering. Same timing, different location. So Wednesday evening, again, starting at 5 with just visiting and 6 o'clock service at the home of Celeste Greinberg, 2400 Cherry Creek South, number 208. And again, those addresses are on the handout so you can remember them. And I think unless there's any other announcements from Feldman, we'll just continue now with, again, a final chance to sing together. And before we do, I just want to say thank you for everyone who spoke and thank you for everyone who's here. I know that this weather and the traffic made it difficult, and it's wonderful to be together, and thank you for coming, and stay safe on your way home. So let's just take a breath. And you can close your eyes if you like. You don't have to, but just take one more chance to bring Diane into your heart, to extend your love to her, to all of those circles of loved ones who are here, who are at a distance. Imagining for just a moment all the lives that were touched by Diane's love and laughter. And we'll hold on to that good feeling, wishing comfort and healing to those who are in mourning as we sing one final time together, and you can open your eyes. Ya la ya 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 la la ya ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la ya la 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 ya la ya 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 la la ya ya la 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 la. Travel safe, everyone.